Welcome and good afternoon from the seminar room Kiev here at Vienna's Alsergrund district. My name is Sebastian Schäffer. I'm the director of the Institute for the Danube region in Central Europe, which is turning 72 years old today. It's our founding day. But today we are not going to talk about IDM. Today we are honored that we will present the book Looking at Women, Looking at War, A War and Justice Diary from Victoria Amelina. And this is in many ways a different type of presentation, as we are unfortunately not able to do it together with the author because she tragically lost her life in a Russian missile strike in Kramatorsk in 2023. And at the time of her death, the manuscript was about 60% completed. And with today's event, we want to honor her legacy and help to ensure that Ukrainian voices are not silenced, especially those documenting Russia's war against Ukraine. I'm extremely grateful that we have two of these voices with us on the panel today. But before we come to them, however, I would like to thank our partners who helped to bring us together. The research service of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, the ÖAD Cooperation Office Lviv, the Ukraine Office Austria, and Index Ukraine. I'm especially grateful that we can once again cooperate with the Embassy of Ukraine in the Republic of Austria, and it is my pleasure to hand over to Vasil Sheshurak from the Embassy for a few opening words. Thank you.
Dear Mr. Director of the IDM, dear guest speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends. It is a great honor for me to join you this evening. I would like to sincerely thank the organizers for inviting me and for creating a space where Ukrainian voices, Ukrainian pain, and Ukrainian resilience can be heard and understood. In my work at the Embassy of Ukraine in Vienna, I often speak about facts. Facts about violations of international law, facts about human rights and abuses, about the consequences of Russia's ongoing aggression against Ukraine. But events like this remind me that behind every political statement, behind every diplomatic message, there is a human story, and many of these stories belong to women. Over the past years, I have met many Ukrainian women here in Vienna, refugees, volunteers, journalists, displaced mothers, survivors. Their strength does not always appear heroic at first glance. Often it is quiet, almost invisible. But it is this strength that has held communities together, saved lives, documented truths, protected dignity in the hardest moments. This is not only a war on territory, it is a war on people, on identity, on the ability to remember. And women have become some of the most important keepers of memory. They carry the stories of their families, their cities, their losses, and they refuse to let these stories disappear. Austria has shown deep solidarity with Ukraine and has opened many platforms, cultural, academic, political, where these voices can be heard. I'm deeply grateful for that. It matters to our society, to our democratic partners in Europe, and most of all, to the people in Ukraine who continue to fight for their lives and their future. Today's event reminds me that culture and literature remain powerful diplomatic tools. They help us to go beyond statistics and headlines. They allow us to feel. They create empathy, something diplomacy alone is not always able to achieve. I will not speak about the content of the book right now. The guest speakers will do it so far better and from a deeper point of view. But I do want to say that works like this help the world to see Ukraine not only as a geopolitical question, but as a nation of individuals whose voices matter. Women's voices in particular illuminate what war really means, not in abstract terms, but in everyday life, in personal tragedy, in personal courage. and they remind us of something essential, that justice begins with memory. I want to thank you, the audience, for being here, for listening, and for caring. Your presence today is also a political act. It shows that truth, human dignity, and European values remain stronger than fear and aggression. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for these opening words. And now I would like to ask to the stage Sasha Dovzhyk, Head of Index, the Institute for Documentation and Exchange in Lviv, and Juri Durkot, a journalist, a publicist, translator, producer, and a friend of mine from Lviv. Thank you very much for joining us today. A big round of applause for her. Please. So what we are going to do is we will talk a little bit about the book. Of course, we will talk a little bit more about Victoria. We will talk about aspects that are mentioned in the book. We will tackle upon various questions, but we are also, of course, happy to receive questions from the audience later on. In the beginning, I would like to start with my personal story, how I received this book and how I came across this book. So in late April, I went to another trip to Ukraine, to Kiev, and then later on also to Lviv. And when I was in Lviv, I met Sasha for the first time. I visited her in her office. She showed me the important work that Index is doing. I heard about it through the IWM, and they put us in contact. And then I saw actually these pictures that are hanging on the wall since yesterday for the first time from Roman Chonomas, and I was deeply moved, and I wanted to bring them to Vienna, which we achieved. And then later on, we talked about books, artists, cultural festival in New York, in Donbass, not in the US. And Sasha invited me to a podcast recording that would happen later in the evening. And that happened. I still had time, and I came to that podcast recording. And then Sasha gave me this book. And I had then, because as you know, you can't travel by plane to Ukraine, so you go on train rides. I went from Lviv to Przemysl, a tiny border town in Poland, where there is actually a direct train to Vienna. It takes about 7-8 hours, and then I had some time, and I started to read the book, and I was captivated by the strong voice, by the powerful writing that was originally written in English, actually, to make it accessible to a wide audience. And as my train came closer to Vienna, and I came to the end of the pages, you could see the voice fading out, because at the end there is the unfinished manuscript and the unfinished points that Victoria wanted to make, and how it was beautifully put together to see just the fragments of it. And I was devastated by how we've lost such a beautiful voice, and it was for me then clear that I want to also talk about this book, and this is how I came across it. Now everybody that if they want it or not gets it as a present from me, because I think a lot of people need to read it. If you haven't done it, do so. And I'm happy that we are here now and talk about this book. And my first question, so to say, would be your personal story with this book, because Sasha, you helped finishing this manuscript, and please tell us a bit more about how that happened and how that went.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. First of all, I want to thank you, because now that Victoria is not with us, we rely on advocates, on allies, on friends who will carry on her message, and that you're doing this work is very meaningful. I think that all of us who hold this book and who read it will also feel this responsibility to carry on the work of that Vika was involved in. I first also read the manuscript of what later became this book on a train, but it was a train that was taking me from Przemysl to Lviv. When I decided that I would move to Ukraine permanently in order to work on the foundation of Index, which later became the Institute for Documentation and Exchange. I was honored by the invitation to work on the unfinished manuscript that Victoria managed to write by 2/3. We sort of tried to estimate what cannot be estimated, because the writer's ideas, the writer's vision for the book is what only that writer can achieve. But we were left with a beautiful structure, and we were left with about 60-70% of beautifully written, polished chapters that were partly testimony, partly literary reportage, partly memoir, looking at women who were, like Victoria herself, involved in the work of witnessing and in the work of fighting for justice for Ukraine. And when I started reading the manuscript, I was like yourself, I was struck by the power of this literature, by the singularity of this voice, by the unique material that was presented in this book. And also I was completely devastated by the loss, because what I, Tatiana Taran, Alex Amelin, and Yerina Grusha have achieved by putting this book together, by putting things in order, by supplying commentary for the missing parts, by going through drafts and notes and transcripts of audio files, is not what would have been if the author herself managed to finish the work. Victoria Amelina was killed in a Russian missile attack. She was fatally wounded in a Russian missile attack on Kramatorsk on the 27th of June, 2023, and she died of her injuries on the 1st of July. But at that moment, this book was already, something that was driving her forward. From the novelist, from the fiction writer, she turned into a war crimes investigator at the beginning of the full-scale invasion in the spring of 2022. It was the drive for justice that made her make this choice. But while she was documenting the stories of survivors and victims of Russian war crimes in the liberated territories of Ukraine, she also reconnected with this gift of a storyteller, and she realized that this skill, this gift that she had, this talent she had, could also serve the cause of justice. And she started working on this book. And of course, it was very clear that this book had to be finished, had to be brought to the public, rather, in its unfinished form. And I think that it's this fragmented form with all the losses, with all the pages that will never be filled by the author, that today also becomes a testimony in itself, not only in its content, but also in its form.
Thank you, Sasha. Juri, your personal connection to Victoria, and then also a little bit in the context of the book.
Yeah. We first, for the first time, we met in 2018. It was in Germany, in Berlin, and I was very impressed. And I tried, after this first encounter, to find a German publisher for the beautiful novel written by Victoria. The English title, the working title at least, was then Dom's Dream Kingdom. I don't know if the title still remains the same. The Ukrainian title is Dім для дома. But it was very difficult at that time to find a big German publishing house because the interest was rather low. Neither the Orange Revolution nor the Euromaidan sparked the real interest in Germany or in Austria or in Switzerland for Ukrainian literature. And in July 2023, Andrei Kurkov wrote in his obituary after Victoria's death for The Guardian that the invasion had already claimed the lives of around 30 Ukrainian novelists, poets, and publishers. I asked Andrei back then if he is sure about this number, and his answer was yes, definitely yes. Then I tried to count how many Ukrainian books were published in the German-speaking world. It means in Germany, in Austria, and in Switzerland combined. And I've found out that there were less than 30 titles published in the last 5 years in Switzerland, in Germany, and in Austria. So it's really sometimes a very cruel world because sometimes we need real tragedy or a big catastrophe to spark the interest on cultural issues and on beautiful novelists and also authors. I would start perhaps with another story. Victoria asked me in May 2023 to translate a short poem for her interview with the German magazine Stern. It should be published as a part of this interview. The Ukrainian title is Misto Zhinok, and it is very typical for this time and for Victoria's work at that time, because it is a poetical story about Ukrainian women, about ordinary women in a small Ukrainian town. So I start with the Ukrainian version, then I would read the German version, which was published in Stern, and later also in my obituary in Die Welt, in the German daily newspaper, and later it was published also in some Swiss magazines. Misto Zhinok. В цьому дивному місті свідчать лише жінки. Одна говорить мені про зниклу дитину. 2 говорять про закатованих у підвалі. 3 кажуть, що не чули про зґвалтування і відводять очі. 4 говорять про крики з комендатури. 5 про застрелених на подвір'ях. 6 говорять, але нічого не розібрати. 7 досі вголос перераховують запас їжі. 8 кажуть, що я брешу, і справедливості не існує. 9 говорять поміж собою, йдучи на цвинтар. І я теж йду, бо вже знаю всіх в цьому місті. І всі його мертві – це мої мертві. І всі вцілілі – це мої сестри. 10 говорять про вцілілого чоловіка. Його також забрали. Він може свідчити про катів. Я стукаю в його двері, але виходить сусідка, говорить за нього. Лише здається, що він вцілілий. Іди, говори з жінками. the German version, die Stadt der Frauen. In dieser seltsamen Stadt reden nur Frauen. Eine Frau erzählt mir von einem vermissten Kind. 2 sprechen von den zu Tode gefolterten im Keller. 3 sagen, sie hätten nichts von Vergewaltigungen gehört und schauen weg. 4 berichten von Schreien in der Kommandatur. 5 erzählen von Erschossenen in den Höfen. 6 reden, aber man kann sie nicht verstehen. 7 zählen immer noch laut die Nahrungsvorräte durch. 8 sagen, ich lüge und es gebe keine Gerechtigkeit. 9 reden miteinander auf dem Weg zum Friedhof. Ich gehe auch hin, denn ich kenne schon alle in dieser Stadt und all ihre Toten sind meine Toten und alle Überlebenden sind meine Schwestern. 10 Frauen sprechen von einem Mann, der überlebt hat. Auch er wurde verschleppt. Er kann über die Henker aussagen. Ich klopfe an seine Tür, aber es kommt eine Nachbarin heraus und spricht für ihn. Es scheint nur so, als wäre er unversehrt. Geh, sprich mit den Frauen. I tried to translate this short poem into English as well. It is not a literal translation. It's a little bit a small try to do that. The town of women. In this strange town, only women bear witness. 1 tells me about a missing child. 2 talk about those tortured in the basement. 3 say they haven't heard about the rapes and look away. 4 talks about the screams from the commandant's office. 5 talk about those shot in the courtyards. 6 speak, but nothing can be understood. 7 are still loudly counting their food stocks. 8 say I'm lying and that justice does not exist. 9 talk among themselves as they walk to the cemetery. I'm going too, because I know everyone in this town, and all its dead are my dead, and all the survivors are my sisters. 10 talk about the man who survived. They took him too. He can testify about the executioners. I knock on his door, but his neighbor comes out and speaks for him. It only seems that he survived. Go, talk to the women.
Thank you, Juri. Thank you.
It's also probably necessary to add that it was not only the choice to become a war crimes investigator that marked Victoria's life after the full-scale invasion, but also that she began writing this documentary poetry. And some of these poems are translated into English, and you can find them online. And others will hopefully be published soon in a volume, in a slight collection of poetry, slight for the reason that the author was killed a year and a half after she started writing these testimonies in verse. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing this voice here.
Thank you. Yeah, my next question to you would actually be about the silencing of these voices. Can you tell us a bit more how the book also serves to directly counter the efforts of Russia to silence the voices, and maybe also put a bit more context into this, because I don't think that it's generally understood that within this war there is an attempt to silence the voice, to erase Ukrainian culture. It's an attempt that we see and that is also documented here in that book.
Yeah. I will probably also start where Yuri what Yuri has mentioned. The number of Ukrainian culture makers that have been killed since the full-scale invasion is currently 248. I checked this number yesterday. The monitoring that Index conducts together with PEN Ukraine and 6 other institutions is called Ukrainian Culture Makers Killed by Russia. Very simple. And this number, 248 cultural practitioners, it embraces photographers, it embraces artists, literary translators from ancient languages, historians, and writers, and you name it. It's people who make up with their work the canvas of Ukrainian culture, where we learn who we are, where we can tell the world who we are. They are the carriers of Ukrainian national identity. Through their words, through their work, we recognize each other, we recognize ourselves, and they are being one of the targets of of Russia's war. I must say that this number is not comprehensive because we do not have access to the occupied territories of Ukraine, where the most atrocious Russian crimes are being committed against the Ukrainian people and against the Ukrainian culture. We also know from the experience of liberating some of those areas occupied by Russia that what Russians do when they invade a town, invade a city, they burn Ukrainian books. They destroy they rob Ukrainian art museums of their collections. They transport all this cultural heritage to Russia so that we can never reconnect with it again. They try to erase what makes us, us. And they are sometimes successful in their efforts. In this book, one of the stories that were very crucial for Victoria was the story of Volodymyr Vakulenko. I actually met Victoria on a trip to the Kharkiv region, which was very important for her because she worked there as a war crimes investigator after the liberation. One of the villages that had been occupied by Russia and then liberated by the Ukrainian army is the village of Kapitolivka. And there lived the children's author, Volodymyr Vakulenko. He placed the name of his village, Kapitolivka, K, as a afterfix, postfix, suffix to his surname. He called himself Volodymyr Vakulenko K after Kapitolivka. When Russians occupied Kapitolivka, they also found him and they took him away. Victoria was among those who sounded the alarm, and she was among the more active members of PEN Ukraine, and she started publicizing this case and demanding that, throwing the spotlight on this case of a children's author who was taken away by the Russians. And of course, when the village was deoccupied, when the Kharkiv region was deoccupied, we all learned that this region was basically became the place where we discovered the mass graves of Ukrainians who had been killed by Russian occupiers. Among those killed was also Volodymyr Vakulenko. When Victoria was investigating his case, she heard from his family, from his father, that during the occupation, Volodymyr was writing a diary, and that before he was taken away, he actually buried the diary under a cherry tree in his garden. And Victoria was the one who demanded from the father of Volodymyr Vakulenko to look for it, and she was the one to find it, to uncover it. She saved the diary, which is a crucial document of Russia's invasion and a crucial document of crimes committed against Ukrainian culture. And she transported the diary to the Kharkiv Literature Museum. So she saved this document, and she was going to write the story of the person who was writing it. this story is not captured the way it should have been in this book. Because apparently Victoria knew it so well, and it was so well composed in her head that she thought that she would write it up in the very last moment. That very last moment was not to be. But you can read about the story of Volodymyr Vakulenko in the account of Charlotte Higgins, the culture writer at The Guardian, who worked with Victoria and who became her friend and who told the story on the pages of The Guardian. Unfortunately, this story is not told by Victoria Amelina herself, but in this book you will find accounts of Volodymyr Vakulenko's wife and also librarian from the village of Kapitolivka, the absolutely inimitable Yulia Kakulia-Daniluk, who will restore your faith in humanity. Regarding the erasure of Ukrainian culture and the erasure of the voices of Ukrainian culture makers, the story is not new, and it was also important for Victoria to emphasize this, that the empire had these continuous attempts to erase Ukrainian culture, to erase Ukrainian identity. And the current genocidal invasion is just another attempt in a chain of those. There is a wonderful chapter which is called, let me see so that I'm not mistaken, Brazil and Bucha. It connects the story of the executed renaissance of Ukrainian culture makers, the generation that was active in the 1920s, those who composed the literary avant-garde, the artistic avant-garde of Ukrainian culture, and were basically killed by the Stalinist purges in the 1930s. And one of those who suffered who did not survive that wave of repressions against Ukrainian culture was the director Les Kurbas. Victoria connects to his story when she sees a poster of one of his plays displayed in Kharkiv, in the wartime Kharkiv in 2022. The premiere of Mykola Kulish's, the playwright Kurbas worked with and who was also repressed by the Russians. So the poster of this play that was to be performed in Kharkiv was, it was supposed to happen at the end of February 2022. Obviously it did not happen because Russia invaded Ukraine all around the country. And while Victoria was writing this story, the massacre of Ukrainian people in Bucha was also uncovered. So she was writing it like in spring 2022. And she was comparing these two stories, the story of the executed renaissance and the story of the massacre that she was witnessing in her own time. And these parallels are present throughout this book. It tells with a lot of lucidity and a lot of clarity. It tells us the history of continuous Russian attempts to erase Ukrainian culture. And this book is also a proof that these attempts are not successful because it's a very, very powerful voice that keeps testifying even posthumously.
Thank you, Sasha. I know that you also have to add something to this, but I will add something to that question. You allow me. So what fascinated me as well with the book is we have poetry, as we heard from you. We have these testimonies that are collected. But what I also learned is how you actually do this war crime reporting. There are these matrices in the book that shows you how you properly do this, because it's not that you actually should write any emotional account of stories that are certainly very emotional, as you have told them, and that story about the finding the diary and writing diaries, and this is something that is very emotional. But when it comes to documenting war crimes, it's important that it sticks to facts that then later are upheld in court. Now, when I learned this, I was looking more into also what it would mean to have a just peace. And I've been working and publishing a little bit on this afterwards. I also read then East-West Street from Philip Sands, which is also mentioned as a follow-up. But I learned from you now that just peace is actually not something that is accurate when it comes to actually deal with the current situation, because it's a deterioration of words that are used with regards to that war of aggression of the Russian Federation. So please, what you educated me, educate everyone on that, please, as well.
Yes, it's really not an easy question because we should answer the question basically what does just peace mean? And I think there is a very dangerous shift in the word meaning because at the very beginning of this war, nobody spoke about peace. Most people spoke about other things. For example, that Ukraine should win this war, that Russia should lose this war. So it was a very dangerous shift. It reminds me a little bit on the story of Ukrainian dictionaries in the Soviet time, because it was an attempt of the Soviets to make the both languages, Ukrainian and Russian, closer together. And it was it didn't happen overnight, but there were some steps this way. So in an edition of a Ukrainian dictionary, there was a Russian word as another word for the same word, and then in the next edition, 3 or 4 years later, this Russian word was on the first place, and the Ukrainian word was on the second place. And in the third edition, there was no Ukrainian native word at all. There was only the Russian word, and it was an attempt to show that both languages are very close related, and it was an official policy of the Communist Party in the Soviet time. So it was a shift. It didn't happen overnight. It was a shift, and here we have to do with the same phenomenon. And I think it is very, very dangerous because today everybody speaks about just peace, not knowing what exactly just peace means. But other people speak just about peace, if as you had said, not about just peace. But if we speak about just peace, we should for us, we should answer the basic question: what does it mean? Does it mean that the occupied territories, the annexed territories, are recognized by international organization, for example, or by the West? Or does it mean they should not be recognized? And what does it mean for the security? Will this peace, if there will be a peace at all, will this peace be a long-lasting peace? There are many questions that couldn't be answered at the moment. But I find the whole rhetoric about peace is a very dangerous trap. In fact.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. So not only how we talk about how this war would end shifted, we also talked about shifting narratives yesterday at the IDM conference. And my next question to you would be actually also about shifting narratives, but rather shifting the Russian narratives, and especially in Austria, the Russian narratives are very strong and still being perpetuated in certain circles. What do you think? How can the book that also emphasizes the responsibility of memory in times of war, how we can, through these documentations, challenge the Russian narratives and support accountability, which would be then an aspect of a just peace. I think that these war crimes would actually be trialed, which is, of course, at the moment, not something that seems to be realistic, but would be something that I understand as necessary as bringing about a just peace.
In the thing that should not be mentioned in polite society, the agreement that was talked about a lot, and which included certain points, and which Russia and Ukraine were supposed to sign in the mindset of certain world leaders. There was one point which concerned the amnesty for war crimes for both parties. As far as I know, it's Russia that invaded Ukraine, so we are talking about the amnesty for Russian war crimes in Ukraine. And this kind of erasure of our idea of justice and of our idea of international law is not something that we should tolerate, because the erosion of international law will affect not only Ukraine, that is currently under attack, but all of us. It's called international for a reason. What I love about this book is that it is not defeatist. It preserves the moral clarity that we had in 2022 and in 2023 when we talked about Ukrainian victory and the defeat of Russia. And I will probably read a little passage from it, which sort of captures Victoria's vision in a way. So, and maybe later we can also discuss it. So in the spring of 2022, Victoria returns to Kyiv, which is not a safe place today. It wasn't a safe place in 2022, but some of her friends, including a fantastic human rights lawyer and writer, Larisa Denisenko, is there. And they are taking a walk and trying to taste this new reality of a European capital being under a full-scale attack of an aggressor state. And they're talking and trying to find words to describe this new reality. It's the first time I see Larisa without makeup, in gray, nondescript clothes and with a lost look on her face. She was always the brightest, a brunette with beautiful eyes, flowery suits, colorful jewelry, and an incomparable expertise in law and women's rights. Now, a month after the full-scale Russian invasion, it seems that only the expertise remains. Larisa looks like her own shadow. I brought her colorful candies as a present. She's looking at them in disbelief, as if colors all went away, broke into shades, and disappeared as if washed away by tears. She talks, I listen. She has been listening to women throughout her law career. I have to listen to her now. Suddenly she stops, looks at me and asks, "Can you see the future? I mean, I can see today, but I try to imagine our life in several years and I cannot. Even half a year or a month is hard. I just don't see it." "I see it," I say. She waits for me to elaborate. "I see the future. I mean, we might get hit by the Iskanders at this very moment, but at the same time, I somehow see Ukraine after the war. I don't know if we are in the future, but there is Ukraine after the war," I say and turn away. So I want us to carry this vision with us, that there is an after the war, and that there is Ukraine in it, that there is a future for this country, for which the brightest people have lost their lives already.
Thank you, Sasha. Yeah. One of the narratives that I also see coming out of Russia, but also being perpetuated in not only Western European, but in general, is on the one hand, I saw a video circulating on social media that showed Lviv, people on the street being happy, sitting, drinking, not in a bomb shelter. People saying like, look, this is what war looks like. So insinuating, why should we support Ukraine if everything is normal? So I don't want to talk about these Russian narratives. It's just like the example. But what I want to hear from you, because one of the things that is also something that we maybe underestimate, that there is humor, which is necessary also in order to maybe survive this, and encounters such as the ones that Sasha just read out is also something that you mentioned to me, where humor plays a role. Can you tell us a little bit more about this, please?
Yeah. It's a very interesting question, because it is very human to laugh, and it is very human to go out and to try to live a normal life. And I don't think Ukrainians are exceptional in that. I wrote about the German bombardments of London in the Second World War. Back then, British government expected that chaos would appear, and that the situation would be completely unmanageable. Mm-hmm. But nothing like that appeared. People went to work after they buried their relatives or acquaintances, and they tried to live their normal lives. It's very human, and I would say Ukrainians started laughing again a few weeks after the beginning of the war. Perhaps not in the first few days. The trauma was too strong, too heavy. But a couple of weeks later, there were plenty of jokes in the internet, and there is a very beautiful quote of Victoria in her book. She says, "It is striking how much we all laugh during this horrible war. We may not do it that much in front of the foreign reporters, who mostly expect to see Ukrainian women's despair or heroism. The truth is sometimes tired of crying or of being unable to cry. We laugh like crazy, as if proving that here we are, Ukrainians, still alive."
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, at this point, I will give the opportunity also to our viewers online to ask questions, or if there is someone who also wants to maybe mention some story that relates to Victoria or the book, please feel free to do so. Also here in this room, you can raise your hand virtually. my colleague Sophia will monitor.
May I bring up a connection to the exhibition that we are currently surrounded by?
Yeah.
So Juri has mentioned Domström's Kingdom, and another novel by Victoria that is worth mentioning, it's not currently translated into English, is The Fall Syndrome, Syndrome Listopada, and it talks about the events of the Revolution of Dignity, but also about other revolutions that were happening around the world at the time, 12, 15 years ago, and that were inducing a lot of hope for democratic movements worldwide. And currently we are surrounded by photographs by the Ukrainian documentary photographer Roman Chernomaz, who was an activist, so he participated in the Revolution of Dignity. You can see these pictures behind our backs over there. The Revolution of Dignity, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's the uprising in Ukraine in just 2013-14, when our then president, Victor Yanukovych, refused to sign the association with the European Union, and it was met with first peaceful demonstrations. Then these demonstrations were met with police brutality, and in response to this police brutality, like 1 million people went to the streets, and most of them remained there for the next 3 months. And at some point, the then corrupt Ukrainian government decided to disperse the protest with bullets, and this is what Roman Chernomaz also documented in his photography. He went to defend Ukraine in 2022, and in 2023 he was killed as a sniper. So you can see some of his photographs in the wall over there from the Zaporizhian front, which he was defending with arms. This Revolution of Dignity was also important for Victoria, so that she dedicated one of her novels to it, because, as I said, there was a lot of hope in it, and I want to read out one quote from it. If you bear with me, I will find it. From the Syndrome of the Fall. They fell, the people who believe, and I stood in the middle of the street like a plea for truce in a white jacket. I was surrounded by struggles for freedom, close to home and far away, big and small, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, hipster, human. One day there will be more of us, and the pain divided up between us all will disappear like the sun disappears into the ocean. Before morning, when dreams disperse and the stranger passing by walks on, sobered up in the light of day, he and I will go beyond the horizon, each of us beyond their own horizon, each with their own load to carry. But the sun will run away again from those of us nearby to those of us far away, and darkness will cover the world with dreams from the other hemisphere, mixing up misfortunes, shuffling souls like a pack of cards, as if there isn't such a big difference between people after all, and the world can be changed. There is a huge, huge drive and belief in humanity, in solidarity, and in people of goodwill holding hands in Victoria's novels and in her last book of creative nonfiction, which I want all of us to read and to be inspired by.
Thank you. Yeah.
Perhaps just 2 remarks. Victoria's book, Looking at Women, Looking at War, was published also in German in spring this year. It is this blue book, Fototapeta, is the publisher of the book. Blick auf Frauen, den Krieg im Blick. And I think it was last week that also Victoria's novel Dom's Dream Kingdom was published in German by another publishing house, Mauke Verlag from Jena. And one short remark as well, and Victoria proves it very clearly with her book. The German historian Ilko Sasha Kowalczuk put it very, very clearly. Freedom is more important than peace, he said, because without freedom, there is no peace.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a question, but yeah, I think I recently had a possibility to discuss also this aspect of freedom and the dangers of nostalgia. We're talking about a different book, Time Shelter by Georgi Gospodinov. Also something interesting to maybe read. But the point was it was about the nostalgia that was there when it comes to, for instance, the time of the USSR, but also the GDR in Germany, and this quest for freedom when in those times the people wanted to tear down the Berlin Wall, bring down the Iron Curtain, etc. And we came to a conclusion in this discussion that it is, of course, nowadays something where we try to preserve that freedom, but it seems to be very hard to understand and make people understand that this is also something that is necessary. Yeah? It seems to be easier to comprehend to long for something that you don't have rather than preserving something that you have. But we tend to forget that we don't need to remind the Ukrainians because they're fighting for it, but we tend to forget that they're also fighting for our freedom in this war. But yeah, please.
Just a technical question, but it's answered practically. The book seems to be available right now in bookstores of Vienna or not?
Yeah.
Really? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Has been translated into 17 languages.
Those were.
German, English, French, Korean.
Yeah, okay. I don't think they have Korean.
I think you can order.
Yeah. Yeah, I would buy it today.
In every bookstore.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Another question to both of you that also is something that I think is interesting to keep in mind. So when it comes to the silencing of the voices, I wonder, like, how is it possible to continue writing, and why is it actually necessary to continue writing? Because we talked about it, Yuri. We can do these events, and we will write about if it's just peace or victory or anything, but it's very unlikely that we will convince people that are caught in this other narrative that have made up their mind in a different way. Is it futile to continue writing, talking about it, and doing this?
It might certainly feel futile at points, but I believe it's necessary. At Index, we have a program which is named after Victoria Amelina, Victoria Amelina Fellowship, and it's founded precisely to continue telling the story. So 2 writers, one from Ukraine, one from abroad, are invited to stay with us at Index for 3 months and work on their creative nonfiction project, which looks into the roots and causes of Russia's invasion. It was very important for us that this story is told with like full knowledge, embodied experience of what it means and what it feels like, so that when time passes, we can still recognize ourselves in the ways the stories of this war and of Ukrainian resistance are told in various forms and formats. And this is precisely the reason why these stories need to be written down and need to be captured right now, because we want to be truthfully represented in history. And as this book also shows us, listening and capturing the truth can, for some people, also be a form of justice. This is the one of the ideas of Victoria that I find very inspirational, that storytelling can be a form of justice. So I would, and also for a country like Ukraine that has faced waves and waves of institutional erasure, of cultural erasure, it is very important to overcome this trauma of our story being told for us by the colonizer. It is time for us to be telling this story and for others to listen and to give, to provide space and to provide platform for the voices that know this story from within to be present in the public discourse.
So, Juri, yes, if we try to explain why people in the Western world believe in the Russian propaganda, it's not easy to explain that, but we should all realize that this war of aggression against Ukraine is not a war for territories. It's a war to destroy Ukrainian identity, to destroy Ukrainian culture, and to destroy Ukrainians as nation. And in the imaginary world of Putin, there are no Ukrainians. We are all Russians, he claims. So it's unbelievable, and perhaps why? Because it's unbelievable. It is very difficult to believe it. But of course, Russia tries not only to destroy Ukrainian culture, but to steal cultural goods that it haven't destroyed yet. We saw it that, for example, Scythian gold was stolen by Russia from Crimean museums. The same fate appeared to some museums in Kherson after the Russian occupation, and so on. So it's all the attempt to destroy Ukrainian culture and Ukrainian identity. And the question is, of course, why Russia wants to prevent that truth comes out. And I think Victoria answers this question in his book as well. And she says, for example, that the response to truth is often even more truth. And that is why regimes fear even small bits of it. So that's why Russia is trying to prevent every small piece of truth.
Thank you. So we have, I'll come to you in a minute. There is a question online from Jakub Kubica. Says, thank you for the fascinating discussion. The current promotion at Natolin in Warsaw, Poland, is named after Victoria Amelina, the first promotion patroness from Ukraine in the 75 years of the college history. Natolin is the author of the The Revolutions project, analyzing the history and consequences of the 3 Ukrainian revolutions, the revolution on marble, granite, the Orange Revolution, and the Revolution of Dignity, involving top leaders of Ukrainian society, writers, religious and political leaders, historians. In my opinion, the Revolution of Dignity is ongoing, with a little Maidan following the attempt to limit the powers of NABU, the anti-corruption agency in Ukraine. I would like to refer precisely to the cognitive war Russia is waging online. Evidence collection is important also for prosecution, publishing books as well. But in all social media society, perhaps the battlefield is elsewhere. Is Victoria Amelina's heritage present enough online on social media? And I think additionally to it, is it presented in the language of social media, translated to Reels posts, and is this enough in a world where facts are openly questioned?
I will mention the issue of London Ukrainian Review, which we dedicated to Victoria Amelina in August 2023. It includes some excerpts from her prose, also translations of her poetry, and a couple of dedications to her memory. Her poetry is present in Ukrainian Facebook, which is a vehicle for Ukrainian documentary poetry. It's easy, it's fast, there is no gatekeeping, so Ukrainian poets often publish, like, their first medium is Facebook, and that was also true for Victoria's poetry. So it's up there. And as I have mentioned, some of the translations are also present in The Guardian, and I think the New Yorker translated one poem, and so on. So that Victoria herself also wrote some of the very influential essays in English, and for sure one is published in Eurozine, and another one in Irish Court. Anyway, I will not. I will make a mistake right now. So there are some texts that are available online for those who want to find them or look for them. In terms of memes and reels, I'm not sure that. Anyway, if anyone feels like they have an inspiration, they can try their hand, I guess. Only if they do it with respect.
Yeah, I think it's also good to follow Index on their social media accounts, because I saw reels about Victoria done by you and the institute. So maybe this is a direction to look for, please. Yeah.
There is a recording of Victoria Day. This is a flagship event that we do as a concluding event of the Victoria Amelina Fellowship, and it includes some memories and testimonies of people who continue some of the initiatives that Victoria started. And it also includes a discussion with two inaugural Victoria Amelina Fellows at Index, Katerina Yakovlenko, who has finished her book Donbass as a Metaphor. It will appear in Ukrainian early next year and hopefully in English in 2027. And Eva Peik from the Netherlands, who is currently completing her book looking at the experiences of women at wartime in Ukraine.
Thank you. So,
I have a question about the occupied areas. At the very beginning, it seemed that people still could get out, especially via Russian territory. And later on, it's getting more and more isolated. Now, are we heading towards a sort of George Orwell 1984 complete separation, or are there still contacts? Because also social media are cut, and what is the situation? Thank you.
There is a very powerful statement by Alexandra Matveychuk, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate from Ukraine, the head of the Center for Civil Liberties, that occupation is not the end of war, it's the continuation of war by other means. And currently, people from Ukrainian people experiencing occupation are basically living through the worst of war. It's the destiny of people like Volodymyr Vakulenko that are the testimony for us of what has been done to Ukrainians under Russian occupation. I'm also thinking about hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian children who have been stolen, most from the occupied territories, and transported to Russia, but also to military camps in North Korea, and who have been brainwashed and militarized by the Russian regime currently. So this is the Ukrainian children we are talking about. In terms of contacts with the occupied territories, everything is monitored, and it has to be very sensitively approached. Every time you contact a person who is inside the occupied territory, you have to first and foremost have in mind their safety, because we do not know whether they are being listened to and who can read their messages and so on and so forth. And obviously, like, the information that they receive is very limited. What we know from the experience of people in the liberated Ukrainian territories. When the connection is cut, Russians start to proliferate the narrative that Ukraine has forgotten them and the world has forgotten them in order to undermine the resistance. I'm thinking about Irina Zaporozhets from the Kharkiv region. Her father is currently, he's a civilian, he's not a prisoner of war, but he is missing. They're from a small village in the Kharkiv region, which was occupied by Russians early in 2022. Her father was working on on connection. So he was the one responsible for transmitting the signal between Ukraine. He's an engineer transmitting the signal from Ukraine to this village, and he was maintaining it till the very last, until Russians basically took him away. And we have not heard about his destiny since March 2022. His daughter and his wife are fighting for him, for his release, but they have had no news about him in what is now almost like 4 years, right? And he was the person maintaining this connection between the free Ukrainian territories and those under Russian occupation. So this can also give us an example of what Russia is doing in order to sever this link between people under its occupation and the rest of us.
One short remark, after a part of the Kharkiv region was liberated in 2022, in the autumn of 2022, it was occupied by Russia until then. The Ukrainian authorities, in cooperation with the International Human Rights Organization, discovered 29 torture chambers only in this region. So you can imagine what is happening in the Russian occupied territories all the time.
Please.
Thank you. David Dongo, you are in the center. Until war goes on, adrenaline is present in high quantities in humans' blood and keeps them alert, and sometimes people even find courage to laugh, as it was mentioned. But what happens? But this war will stop. Let's hope rather soon. Peace will come with it. It's another question. I don't know, but this war will stop, and people will face the reality, which will be ugly. So. I'm interested in, maybe you have any information about that. Does anyone now already in Ukraine thinks about how to transition society from a wartime to peacetime? And also, especially, what you are going to do with those thousands of children that were kidnapped by Russians? Just physical repatriation. Let's hope that most of them, if not all, will find their ways back. But the physical repatriation will not solve the problem. Depending on the age, some of them might have no memory at all of the past and feel completely alien in a new, although their own natural, different society. Are there any programs already developing, contemplated by your authorities or some NGOs, or what's the status?
I guess it's the question for me, so I will start, and then you can fill the gaps, which I'm sure will be many. It's a very optimistic question if we start thinking about, the moment when this war ends. There was a recent screening of the film by Mstislav Chernov. It's called 2000 Meters to Andreevka, and after it, there was a Q&A with the director. It's clear from the film that his audience is international because the voiceover is in English, and it's his voice telling the story of what is going on the screen. And what is going on is the liberation of a very short piece of Ukrainian land with huge human sacrifice. So I asked him about like his message for the home audience, what this kind of film in Mstislav's mind, what kind of work it was doing for the audience that was watching the film in Lviv. And he said that, like, obviously some obvious, more evident answers like memory, because war is names for us, and it's the names of those whom we've lost that are very prominent in this film. Also the shortening of the distance between civilians watching the movie in the theater in Lviv and those fighting for Ukrainian lands, although there were like many people from the military in the audience. But obviously their experience for us is like maybe our experience is for people from Vienna who cannot imagine what it means living under the full-scale invasion. And the third answer that he gave was, you must try to imagine that this war will continue for your entire life. You sit with this thought in your head, and then you try to base your actions on this very precipice. And then, if you actually take it seriously, we stand a chance of keeping our state, keeping our country. And that thought remains with me. But let's imagine that there is a miracle, like Russia disappears, and there is an after the war. And we are dealing with the problems that seem quite like they're serious, but compared to the threat of being completely erased, this is something that Ukrainian society, I'm sure, will deal with. So there are incredible NGOs in Ukraine doing the work of documenting the fate of Ukrainian children, and who are working with children today who are like living through traumatic experiences. And I have worked with them during workshops on oral history, because they are working on methodologies to take testimonies from the children without traumatizing them. And I can tell you that these are very inspired people who will continue doing this work, and who will be striving to make their work, which is currently at the NGO level, into policy. And that would be fantastic. There are other strands of work, like this war has already been going on for 12 years. So it means that we've been living war for a very long time, for more than a decade. And it means that we are already, in some ways, in some parts of our society, are living with the consequences. At Index, for example, we have launched and very successfully implementing the veteran program. It's for people in arts, in culture, and the humanities who have served on the front lines and who have returned to the civilian life and are interested in preserving the testimony, and are interested in transforming their experience into knowledge that we all will definitely benefit from. So these initiatives are they're ground level initiatives, but they are numerous and they're spread all over the country. And Ukrainians are networking nations, so this is what keeps our society together, the cohesion of our society, is that we connect to each other on the horizontal level, and then we influence those who are in the government.
Is there something you would like to add? No. Yeah, we are slowly coming to the end of our event today. I have one last question for you, but I would then also read a sentence that struck me very much when I started reading the book. It's in the very beginning, because I mean the overall story is also that Victoria was not in Ukraine when the full-scale invasion happened. She was actually in Egypt and trying to get back to Ukraine, which was also something that that we remember the long lines of people trying to leave the country, and she was actually going in the opposite direction. And something that for me helped to understand what this actually does to you and how important it is to keep understanding and informing what is happening is the very beginning that she says, and it starts so that the chapter is called "The Shell Hole in the Fairy Tale," and the first sentence in the book is, "I have just bought my first gun in downtown Lviv. I've heard that everybody is capable of killing, and those who say they aren't just haven't met the right person yet. An armed stranger entering my country might just be the right person." And I think we really need to understand that this is we keep forgetting, and one of the narratives that is also out there is like, this is just a quarrel between neighbors. No, there is an active invasion, an active aggression, a genocidal war going on, and it's normal people that try to defend their country, and artists, civilians that are trying to protect themselves. And this is really something that is hard to comprehend. I understand that, but I think it's necessary for all of us to understand that this is not some random thing that happens somewhere. This happens very, very close to us. Our former chairman Erhard Busek, he always told us Ushgorod is closer than Bregenz to Vienna. So that means this war is closer than you leave Austria, and so something to maybe keep in mind and also keep from this discussion. My last question to both of you is, of course, when we are honoring Victoria's legacy, what would be the key messages from these women's experiences you do hope that will endure in the fight for memory, justice, and also just peace? Who wants to start?
I think a very important message is that we're not allowed to give up. I've mentioned already that it is not defeated, and it will infect you with its drive for justice and its drive for victory. Victoria is victory. There is a lot of symbolism in this. And once you absorb this book, it will hit you because you will experience this pain from the loss of a talent, but also of a human being. And I guess that the response to this pain is responsibility. It means that we are all now responsible to make sure that the goal that was Victoria's goal becomes our goal, and that we fight for it with whatever tools we have.
Thank you.
Perhaps it is the best possibility to quote Karl Schlögl, the Peace Prize of the German Book Trade winner this year in October 2025. And it was a very remarkable acceptance speech by him. And Karl Schlögl emphasizes what Europe owes to the Ukrainian people. And in this case, it means also to Victoria. The citizens of Ukraine help us understand who we are dealing with, a regime that wants to destroy Ukraine as an independent state and that hates Europe. They show us that accommodating the aggressor only increases its appetite for more, and that appeasement does not lead to peace, but paves the way for war. Because they are on the front line, they know more than we do in the still safe hinterland. They are the mirror we look into, reminding us of what Europe once stood for and why it is worth defending. They call out to us, do not afraid, not because they are not afraid, but because they have overcome their fear. The writers do their utmost to give voice to what others far away cannot express. They have carried the Ukrainian language out into the world and achieved a miracle of literature. Their poets speak with deadly seriousness. Some even paid with their lives for it, as Victoria Amelina did.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I will say a few closing words, but I will not have the last word. So please stay with us because the last word will come from Victoria. First of all, of course, thank you very much to both of you for this discussion. I think a big round of applause for our Italian voices alive. Thank you very much, of course, to the audience in the room and also online being present. Thank you very much to my team, especially today, Sophia, who did the technical necessities to keep everything running and also helping me prepare this event here. A big thank you again to the cooperation partners, the research service of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, the ÖAD Cooperation Office in Lviv, as well as the Ukraine office in Austria, both represented by Andreas Wenninger, who is celebrating also his birthday today, and that helped us bringing also you here to us. So thank you very much for this. And then last but not least, again, the embassy of Ukraine in the Republic of Austria, because they also not only are supporting us with their presence, but also with some refreshments that will be served outside in a minute. Thank you very much for your interest. Follow, of course, us at IDM Vienna. We will also try to do our best to keep the Ukrainian voices heard. And yeah, as Christmas is approaching, this is a good possibility to give some presents. Again, it's in English. We have it in German, in many different languages. So there is no excuse. Go buy it. Go give it to people, because it's not only going to be one of the most powerful books that you will have read in a long time. I think it's also very important to keep these Ukrainian voices alive. Thank you very much for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
And
much.
yeah, my pleasure. And now the last word to Victoria. Yeah.
I will now read you a poem which I wrote just a couple of weeks ago in April, after returning from yet another mission to Izum and Balaklia, where we had uncovered several torture chambers, and after talking to women who lost their loved ones. So, a poem about a crow. In a barren springtime field stands a woman dressed in black, crying her sisters' names like a bird in the empty sky. She'll cry them all out of herself. The one that flew away too soon, the one that had begged to die, the one that couldn't stop death, the one that has not stopped waiting, the one that has not stopped believing, the one that still grieves in silence. She'll cry them all into the ground, as though sowing the field with pain. And from pain and the names of these women, her new sisters will grow from the earth, and again will sing joyfully of life. But what about her, the crow? She will stay in this field forever, because only this cry of hers holds all those swallows in the air. Do you hear how she calls each one by her name? The poem is translated by William Blaker. I thank you very much for your solidarity, dear Irish people, for being here today and standing with Ukraine for all this time. Ireland has become special to me, and it became safe haven for my friends who are here today. And Irish pen always makes me feel at home here, as if our two edges of Europe were meant to be bonded in a very special way. But I will now also read one more poem addressing it to Ukrainians in the audience, although it will be in English translation as well. The Homecoming Story. When Mira left home, she took a bead from her jewelry box. When Tim was leaving his town, he picked up a rock from the street. When Yarka was leaving her garden, she took an apricot pit. When Vera was leaving home, she took nothing at all. I will be back soon, she muttered, and took nothing. Mira has grown a jewelry box from her bead. She's growing a new home in the box. Tim has started a city from his rock. It looks just like his hometown, except there's no sea. Yarka has planted her apricot bead. Now she has her orchard around it. And Vera, who took nothing at all. She is telling this story. When you're fleeing home, she says, it gets smaller behind you to save itself. Your home can turn into a gray rock, a bead, last year's apricot bead, even a Lego part, a seashell from Crimea, a sunflower seed, a button from the dad's uniform. And then the home fits into your pocket, and there it sleeps. You should pull home out when you feel safe already. Little by little, your home will grow, and you will never, remember, never be homeless. So, what did you take with you, Vera? I only took this story, the story about homecoming. Here, I pulled it out into the light. Look, it is growing. Thank you so much. Well, very much.